Are you over 50, curious about whether Himalayan salt or Celtic sea salt might better support your health, and eager to discover which option aligns most closely with your wellness goals? We often don't pay much attention to that pinch of salt we toss in our meals, yet as we age, every dietary choice seems to matter more, especially when it comes to factors like blood pressure, bone density, and overall cardiovascular health. Both Himalayan and Celtic sea salts boast reputations for being more natural or mineral-rich than standard table salt, and you've probably heard anecdotes or seen products touting benefits ranging from improved flavor to better electrolyte balance. Before we delve deeper into this topic, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel because it's your way of helping us reach more people who are looking to make mindful decisions about their diet and lifestyle. Besides, staying connected ensures you won't miss any of our upcoming discussions aimed at giving you the most reliable, research-based insights. Salt may not sound like the most dramatic subject, but it has played an enormous role in human civilization. Entire trade routes were established to transport it, wars were fought over it, and taxes were levied on its production. Fast forward to modern times, and we have more varieties of salt on supermarket shelves than ever before. So let's walk through the origins, characteristics, and implications of Himalayan salt and Celtic sea salt, then explore how these might fit into your life after 50, all without skipping the most crucial point: how much salt is actually safe to consume. Himalayan salt in its pinkish glory is mined primarily from the Kura salt mine in Pakistan, and the story behind it stretches back to ancient times when massive seas evaporated, leaving mineral-rich deposits that were eventually buried by tectonic activity. This pink hue often comes from iron oxide content, but Himalayan salt also contains trace amounts of magnesium, calcium, potassium, and numerous other minerals. Some counts suggest there could be up to 80 or so trace elements in those crystals. Over time, these reserves hardened into the rock-like slabs that today's miners extract, break down, and refine into the coarse or fine grains you might add to your salt shaker. While many believe that these extra minerals offer significant health advantages, it's crucial to understand that even though Himalayan salt does have these micronutrients, they are typically present in relatively small quantities, far too modest to be considered a major source of daily minerals compared to a balanced diet of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins. Yet there's no denying that Himalayan salt's color and slightly different flavor can enhance your culinary experiences, and you might even find it used beyond the kitchen. People use large Himalayan salt blocks for cooking certain dishes, and you may have seen those popular pink salt lamps that some claim purify the air or emit calming energy, though scientific evidence for such benefits remains inconclusive. Despite all of this interesting backstory, we must remember that Himalayan salt is still, by and large, sodium chloride. And when it comes to sodium intake, the American Heart Association warns that consistently exceeding recommended levels, ideally around 1,500 to 2,300 milliliters of sodium per day for most people, depending on health conditions, can increase the risk of hypertension and other cardiovascular issues. Now, you might wonder if this pink wonder can circumvent some of salt's age-old pitfalls, but in truth, it's not going to drastically eliminate concerns about high blood pressure if you're heavy-handed with the shaker. Indeed, Himalayan salt is cherished for its flavor, aesthetics, and trace minerals. Yet, from a purely medical perspective, it's wise to treat it with the same moderation you'd show any other salt. Celtic sea salt, on the other hand, emerges from coastal regions, particularly in France, near the Brittany coast, though it can also come from other European areas that follow similar traditional harvesting methods. Its distinctive grayish tint comes partly from the natural clay found in the salt flats, and its harvesting process often involves drying the seawater in shallow pools exposed to sun and wind, resulting in a moist, briny salt. Chefs and home cooks alike love Celtic sea salt for the flavor profile it imparts, described by many as bright, briny, and carrying a hint of the ocean. Much like Himalayan salt, Celtic sea salt also contains trace minerals including magnesium, calcium, potassium, and even small amounts of iodine. However, the critical point remains that these minerals, while beneficial, generally occur in minuscule amounts, meaning you'd need to consume unrealistic portions of salt to gain any significant nutritional advantage from them alone. Still, many people choose Celtic sea salt because they appreciate the traditional, often eco-friendly harvesting process that avoids heavy industrial refinement. Another distinction is that Celtic salt tends to be more damp, which can make measuring by volume tricky. 1 teaspoon of coarse, moist Celtic salt might contain less actual sodium than 1 teaspoon of finely milled table salt, simply because the coarser grains don't fit as tightly in the spoon. While this may seem like a minor detail, it can matter if you're closely watching your sodium intake for health reasons. In terms of health claims, some proponents argue that Celtic sea salt's broader mineral profile might help with hydration and electrolyte balance, which can be helpful particularly if you exercise or have specific deficiencies, but substantial clinical evidence is sparse. Thus, it's essential not to rely solely on a specific salt variety to mitigate or prevent health complications. Instead, it's best viewed as an addition to a balanced diet. From a purely nutritional standpoint, both Himalayan and Celtic sea salts measure up quite similarly. The differences in mineral composition, while present, are often overstated when it comes to real-world impact on your daily intake. If you're seeking to improve health markers like blood pressure or reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, focusing on overall sodium reduction remains more effective than simply swapping one salt type for another. This perspective aligns with guidelines from agencies like the World Health Organization, which recommend consuming less than 2,000 kilocalories of sodium daily, roughly equivalent to 5 grams of salt, a bit under a teaspoon, although many adults in countries around the globe far exceed this amount. When you're over 50, the stakes are even higher because the odds of having hypertension, kidney issues, or complications involving bone density and cardiovascular function can increase. So it's prudent to keep a close eye on how much sodium you consume in total. The nuance, of course, is that if you have a preference for Himalayan or Celtic sea salt's flavor, you might be more mindful about how you use it, which could inadvertently encourage more controlled use. Some people enjoy the tactile experience of sprinkling coarse crystals over a meal, feeling a greater sense of satisfaction and using less salt overall. Others appreciate that neither Himalayan nor Celtic sea salt typically contains the anti-caking agents or bleaching that some table salts have, though iodized table salt was introduced for a reason, to combat iodine deficiency, which is still an issue in some regions. So if you choose a specialty salt, you might want to monitor your iodine levels through dietary sources like seaweed, fish, dairy, or iodized salt used occasionally. People often ask which of these salts offers the best flavor in cooking, and the answer largely depends on personal taste. Himalayan salt has a somewhat earthier, subtly mineral flavor profile, while Celtic sea salt often tastes a bit more oceanic and briny, especially when it retains some moisture. You might find that Celtic salt dissolves more slowly on the tongue due to the presence of residual moisture, creating an interesting burst of flavor. When used as a finishing salt on salads, grilled fish, or roasted vegetables, Celtic sea salt can provide a pop of salinity that's both pleasant and nuanced, making it a favorite among culinary enthusiasts. Himalayan salt, meanwhile, lends itself well to salt rubs for meats and can even be used on salt blocks for searing steaks or seafood, a method that not only imparts flavor, but also can be visually impressive if you enjoy hosting dinner parties. But while these culinary adventures are exciting, it's always wise to remember that the recommended daily limit is there for a reason. And no matter how gourmet your salt might be, it's still important to keep track of your consumption, especially if you've been advised to reduce sodium for health reasons like high blood pressure or kidney issues. A helpful strategy is to pair these salts with plenty of herbs and spices, such as rosemary, thyme, black pepper, garlic, ginger, or turmeric. By layering flavors, you can reduce your reliance on salt as the primary seasoning and gradually train your palate to enjoy foods that are less salty. This is particularly relevant for individuals transitioning into their 50s and beyond, as taste buds can change with age, and you might find yourself more sensitive to, or in some cases craving, saltiness in your diet. Let's consider the research and authoritative guidelines on salt consumption, especially relevant after 50. Organizations like the American Heart Association note that consistently high sodium intake is associated with hypertension, which in turn can increase the risk of stroke, heart attack, and other cardiovascular complications. The relationship between salt and blood pressure isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all matter. Some individuals are more salt-sensitive than others, but if you're over 50, erring on the side of caution is usually a wise move. High sodium intake has also been discussed in some studies regarding bone density, particularly in postmenopausal women, as excessive sodium might contribute to calcium excretion, potentially affecting bone health. In this context, simply picking Himalayan or Celtic sea salt won't magically counteract these challenges, although some people appreciate that unrefined salts do not contain additives like anti-caking agents. Nevertheless, the key takeaway from most health guidelines remains the same. Monitor your daily intake. If you really love salt, investing in a high-quality variety, be it Himalayan or Celtic, could encourage more careful use, since specialty salts often cost more and come in coarser granules, prompting you to measure more precisely and perhaps use less overall. If you have medical conditions such as kidney disease or congestive heart failure, it's even more critical to heed your doctor's advice about sodium limits, as your body might struggle to regulate fluid balance when sodium levels are too high. For most people, the principle of moderation holds, and that means not just limiting how much you sprinkle at the table, but also reading labels on processed foods, condiments, and soups, where a significant chunk of our sodium intake often hides. On a practical level, if you decide to incorporate Himalayan salt or Celtic sea salt into your daily routine, you might want to invest in a good grinder or mortar and pestle if you purchase coarse crystals. You can also keep different textures around, for instance, a fine grind for baking or quick seasoning, and a coarse grind for finishing dishes. In doing so, you might discover that you become more engaged with the cooking process, tasting as you go, which can help prevent oversalting. Some individuals also enjoy creating homemade herb blends, mixing small amounts of salt with dried herbs, spices, and perhaps even some zest from citrus fruits. This approach can stretch out the salt while injecting more complex flavors into your meals. Meanwhile, if you're looking for a salt that can double as a conversation piece, Himalayan salt lamps or salt blocks might be a fun addition to your kitchen or dining area, though their purported health benefits remain largely anecdotal. But that doesn't stop people from enjoying the warm ambient glow of a pink salt lamp in their living room, or the novelty of cooking a steak on a sizzling slab of pink salt. Celtic sea salt, with its maritime heritage, might draw you in if you find romantic appeal in the notion of traditional salt making by artisan paludiers, salt farmers, who rake and collect salt by hand, often in the same ways their ancestors did centuries ago. If sustainability and eco-friendly harvesting matter to you, look for certifications or brand transparency about how they manage the salt flats and protect local ecosystems. That level of care can sometimes justify the added expense for those who value artisanal craftsmanship. After hearing about all these details, origins, mineral compositions, flavor profiles, and potential health implications, you might still be wondering which salt is unequivocally best for someone in their 50s or older. The honest answer, supported by dietitians and health organizations, is that neither Himalayan nor Celtic sea salt outperforms the other in a medically significant way that would let you consume as much as you want without concern. Both are more natural than heavily refined table salt in the sense that they retain some of their trace minerals, and both have distinctive flavors and textures that appeal to many people. However, the main factor remains sodium, and both varieties are mostly sodium chloride. Therefore, the question of best often boils down to taste preference, cooking style, and personal priorities. If you find Himalayan salt's pink crystals and slightly earthy flavor appealing, there's no harm in choosing it, provided you measure your intake. If you love the grayish, moist texture of Celtic sea salt, its briny burst, and the lore of ancient harvesting techniques, feel free to make that your go-to. Again, as long as you use it wisely. For individuals with sodium-related health concerns, the best approach is always to speak with a healthcare provider or registered dietitian who can offer personalized guidelines. You may also want to ask them about whether you need additional sources of iodine, especially if you've largely moved away from iodized salt and don't eat many iodine-rich foods. A balanced diet filled with whole grains, fruits, vegetables, lean protein, and healthy fats goes a long way toward ensuring you get the minerals you need. Salt is usually just one part of the overall nutritional puzzle. Certain health enthusiasts promote the idea that natural salts can help with detoxification or pH balance, but the human body is extremely adept at maintaining its pH through mechanisms in the kidneys and lungs, so the actual effect of salt in altering your pH is minimal. Likewise, while the relaxing quality of a warm bath sprinkled with Himalayan or Celtic salt might soothe muscles, it's more about relaxation than scientifically proven detoxification. Remember that the real value you get from using these salts might be in how you savor your meals, enjoy the cooking process, and perhaps become more mindful about what you're eating. After all, mindfulness is a potent tool for better health, especially in our 50s and beyond, when we're seeking not just to extend our years, but also to enhance the quality of our lives. Now that we've sifted through the history, science, and practical considerations, what should you do going forward? If you're captivated by Himalayan Salt's pink crystals and want to integrate it into your diet, go for it. But try to keep your total sodium intake within recommended ranges to safeguard your blood pressure and cardiovascular health. If Celtic Sea Salt's traditional harvesting methods and oceanic tang captivate you, feel free to sprinkle some on your roasted vegetables or fresh salad, paying attention to portion sizes. In either case, reading labels, measuring your portions, and balancing your meals with plenty of potassium-rich produce like spinach, bananas, or avocados can help counterbalance sodium's effect on blood pressure. And if you're dealing with specific health conditions or dietary constraints, there's no substitute for professional guidance tailored to your unique situation. Choose the salt that resonates with your taste buds and ethos, but always be mindful of the dosage. Before concluding, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you found this exploration valuable. Your engagement fuels our commitment to delivering more science-backed discussions on topics that can make a tangible difference in your life. We appreciate you taking the time to learn about Himalayan and Celtic sea salts, and we hope this deep dive has clarified the nuances so you can make a more informed decision about which salt to keep in your kitchen. Ultimately, being over 50 is an excellent stage to refine your eating habits and tailor them to support longevity, vitality, and enjoyment. Salt, whether pink, gray, or white, can still be part of a balanced diet. Just be sure it doesn't overshadow the broader tapestry of healthy, nutrient-rich foods you consume every day. Thank you for watching and reading, and we look forward to sharing more helpful information with you soon. Stay well, keep exploring, and remember that small, mindful choices like selecting the right salt can lead to bigger health benefits down the line.